Let's see what it do. No, I tried it. I can't get up. It's the issue. It's the issue. Well, why am I not live? Okay, there we go. All right. Let me see if I can get some sound this time. Yeah, I do have sound, but I can't hear myself. Hang on. Everybody relax. Everybody relax. Let's see. Live. Huh? I don't see it. Oh, maybe now. Check one, two, check one, two. I'm just testing my sound. I'm just trying to see if I have sound. Let's see what the delay says. And I have sound. That's cool. That's cool. All right. So look, guys, I want to apologize to everybody on that last live stream because my sound was not working. So I do want to apologize to everybody on that. Yeah, I just didn't have sound. It wasn't my fault, but who else you gonna blame? So you might as well start with me. Anyway, it's your boy Talk Williams, host and creator of Hip Hop 50th. I'm sitting in a Starbucks on the south side of Chicago. And here go the deal, guys. What you see up on the screen, all the way up top, this course is a thumbnail that I created, and it says, "Is AI the great supplanter?" That's right, supplanter. And why am I saying it like that? One, I'm mentioning that word like that because I'm not used to saying it. The other reason why is because some people are saying that AI is going to replace them. That's what they're saying. I think it's going to be a little more than that for many people. It's going to be the supplanter. There's a difference in meaning between a replacement and a supplanter. A replacement is generally seen as a one-on-one deal, meaning you're going to be replaced by somebody. You're going to be replaced by a position, somebody, whatever. Okay, that's the way the world works. We're used to that. A supplanter is when that position or thing that you do is going to disrupt the position itself, meaning there's no coming back. It's over. It's not only over for you in the all of a sudden disruptive and all of a sudden way, but that opportunity is not even there for people of your likeness, of your skill set, of your education, of your experience. It's done. That's what I mean by this question of, is AI the great supplanter? Because if you look up the definition of replacement versus supplanter, while there's some aspects that are similar and the same, that supplanter is a little more deep. But I did want to apologize if you was on the last live because I didn't have sound, and now I'm talking like I got a new toy and I don't know how to shut up. This is not the best sound. Again, I am in a Starbucks on the south side of Chicago, so you may not be getting what you should be. Anyway, as you guys probably already know, as you guys probably already know, there's been a lot of layoffs in the tech sector for different reasons. Okay. But one of the reasons is definitely AI. So just think about it this way. Microsoft laid off over 9,000 people. Facebook, Meta has laid off people. Oracle has laid off people. Salesforce is saying over 50% of their coding is done by AI now. And of course, that might be embellishment. It might be hyperbole because the founder and CEO of Salesforce, Mark Benioff, he's known for that. But the bottom line is this: a lot of people in tech jobs are getting laid off. Engineers, developers, junior developers, etc., et cetera, et cetera. And the unemployment rate for new graduates coming out of college is higher than the national unemployment rate. So on the one hand, you have people in the tech sectors, engineers, tech support, whatever, they're being let go. And then we lack opportunities for new college graduates in the tech sector. Why is that? A combination of things. One of the things is probably because a lot of those people with the experience, with the knowledge, with the degrees that are being let go in those tech companies, they're settling for less money in these other opportunities that would normally go to entry-level workers, junior developers, and the so. So now those positions are not even going to be available for people coming out of school with their degrees, but really don't know how to do anything for the most part. Anyway, before I go any further, I want to play this little clip that you see in the middle right above me. And this is Anthropic. Anthropic is one of those companies that's a LLM. It's like, OpenAI, it's like Google's Gemini, but it's Anthropic. The CEO of Anthropic, you may have heard of him, Dario Amodei or Amadei. I don't know how to speak French, if that's French. And he basically said that with the advent of AI and coding assistants or assistors, we're gonna grow, not today, not tomorrow, but in the next 3 to 5 years, entry level coders, they're gonna disappear. You just won't need them because the system will be able to do it. Here's a small smidget of that. This is basically a video posted by Anthropic showing some of the things that their coding assistant, Claude, can do. So let me play this. These are two engineers, or one engineer and the operations manager, and they're going to give an example of what a coding assistant could do. Now, like I said, this is the company Anthropic, but coding assistants are Google released one. You got Cursor. You got, they're out here. They are available, and they're only going to get better. But let me play this little clip.
Should we be doing like big smile or?
No, big smile's creepy.
That's sort of what I think. I'm Boris. I'm an engineer.
I'm Kat. I'm a product manager.
We love seeing what people build with Claude, especially with coding, and we want to make Claude better at coding for everyone. We built some tools, one of which we're sharing today. We're launching Claude Code as a research preview. Claude Code is an agentic coding tool that lets you work with Claude directly in your terminal. We're going to show you an example of it in action.
So we have a project here. It's a Next.js app. Let's open it up in an instance of Claude Code. Now that we've done this, Claude Code has access to all of the files in this repository. We don't know much about this code base. It looks like an app for chatting with a customer support agent. Let's get Claude to help explain this code base to us. Claude starts by reading the higher level files, and then it dives in deeper. Now it's going through all the components in the project. Cool. Here's its final analysis.
So say I was asked to replace this left sidebar with a chat history, and I'm also going to add a new chat button. I'm going to ask Claude to help me out here. We haven't specified any files or paths, and Claude's already finding the right files to update by itself. Claude can also show its thinking, and we can see how it's decided to tackle this problem. Claude's asking me if I want to accept these changes. I'll say yeah. Now Claude's updating the navbar, adding a button and icons as well. Next, it's updating the logic to ensure the saving state works correctly. After a bit, Claude completes the task. Here's a summary of what it's done. Let's take a look at the app. So we're seeing a new chat button and new chat history section on the left. Let's check if I can start a new chat while keeping the previous one saved. I'll try out the new chat button too. Great, it's all working.
Now let's ask Claude to add some tests to make sure that the features we just added work. Claude's asking for permission to run commands. We'll say yes. Claude is making some changes to run these tests. After getting the results, it continues with its plan until all tests pass. After a few minutes, it looks like we're good to go. Now I'm going to ask Claude to compile the app and see if we get any build errors. Let's see what it finds. Claude identified the build errors and is now fixing them. Then it tries to build again. It'll keep going until it works.
Now let's finish everything up by asking Claude to commit its changes and push them to GitHub. Claude creates a summary and a description of our changes. And it'll push the changes to GitHub. That's it. That's an example of what Claude Code can do. We can't wait for people to start building with it.
Hey guys, again, that was Anthropic's Claude. That's an example of a coding assistant. You might say, well, I'm not a developer, that doesn't have anything to do with me or whatever. The point that I was making and the point that they're making, much bigger than the point that I could make, is that these AI tools and these AI agents, the agentic AI, they will actually be able to perform in the very near future many of the repetitive tasks that doesn't require human-to-human interaction and has been proven to have a particular workflow or a standard or just, like I said, redundancy built in. These are the low-hanging fruit for AI. Let me share with you something real quick that I ran across in the last 72 hours. For years, not just for days, for years, I've been trying to figure out how can I just, get some commercial-free music myself. Now I know that there's plenty things out there. There's many sources out there. But the other day, I ran across Udio. Yeah, Udio. Studio without the ST at the beginning. Udio. And with Udio, within hours, I was able to go in and use their AI to just create me commercial-free music where it won't get copyright infringement by YouTube, where I could just stream it. It's just mine because it was generated. That's all. It was just generated. It don't exist. The songs do not exist. I just wanted to make some instrumentals with a particular style, particular genre, maybe a melody or something like that. So I can just play maybe when I'm relaxing, studying, doing whatever I'm doing, or just stream it to my YouTube channel. I'm serious. And I know it seems like I'm jumping, but this is the example of one why jobs are going to be taken even more with the coding assistants for junior developers and entry-level people who don't really do much at the first tier. And then here's an example, even on the music side, of being able to create your own playlist, your own music, mixed with genre, and you're not even chasing these apps or these companies that's going to give you the license to use something and you have to worry about all of the legal stuff. No. Let me play this. This song doesn't belong to anybody. I just generated this. Usually people, well, here's what I found out in the last 72 hours. Two companies, Suno and Udio. This is Udio. Check this out. All I put in was, I want something relaxing. I want it of a particular style, but I wanted to have an urban or contemporary jazz feel to it. And here's what it produced. Listen to that. This is my little playlist. This is crazy. I'm telling you, it may not seem like a big thing to anybody, and I understand that. But that's the difference making in terms of the utility. That's the difference maker. With AI, if you can identify some utility, some use case, what happens is you eliminate so much, even the budget. Did you know how much money and time and people and understanding that it would take me to do to just get to what I want? I just wanted to create some songs. I don't want to sell them on the internet. I just want to be able to play some of my own background music or have it play over top of some video or run a slideshow of images. Sure, YouTube supplies a whole host of audio files that are made commercial free. I got all of that. But YouTube ain't gonna let you create it. YouTube not gonna, there's just several things YouTube is not gonna do. I mean, this is crazy work right here. Look at this. I'm gonna come all the way down here to Echoes of Love. Listen to this. Listen to that. And then I'm gonna go up here to the social. Anyway, I was just showing that real quick, but back to the business at hand. You know, as they say, back to the lab without a mic to grab. Let's do that, right? Here go the deal, guys. My concern when it comes to AI and these jobs, what's available, what won't be available no more, who's going to lose jobs, who's most susceptible or vulnerable to do so. My concern are people who are already in their career. My concern is the 45-year-old or 45-year-old and older. That's my concern. That's who I have the love for this, the empathy for. Because for the most part, excuse me, if you're 45 years old, you probably already made up your mind what you've decided to do in your life. You've probably been successful, or at least it's been manageable about your career, your monies, how much you're going to make, predicting where you would be, how you could take advantage of upward mobility and different things like that. That's the biggest disruption to me. It's not really to me. This is just anecdotal at this point. But I'm not really concerned about the 21-year-old or the 22-year-old or the 18-year-olds coming fresh out of college, not being able to find high-paying tech jobs at six figures and all that, because they're going to figure it out. They just are. That's just the way it works for them. Why? They don't have any contrast. They're not suffering from anything the way that it was because they don't know how it was. They just know how it is because they ain't been living long enough to know how it was. They don't have a home. They haven't decided to make a lifetime commitment with a husband or a wife or a partner. They haven't decided to sign on the same piece of paper as somebody else to pay for a property for the next 30 years or 15 years. They don't have all of these joint commitments financially and dealing with health issues and where benefits are a big concern. So my concern is the 45s and older because that's where um, we're going to really see people get affected in the way that what's fair and what's deserving will have nothing to do with anything. It just won't. That's how I look at it. And so if you are a knowledge worker, meaning the way that you get paid, the way that you earn your keep is what you do with your fingers at the keyboard, you got to figure out what are you going to do? How do you prepare for this? How do you future proof either your current job or how do you put yourself in the position for new opportunities? You know, if you're 55 years old, how do you deal with ageism? I mean, many people are already facing different levels of different challenges in terms of systematic challenges, institutional barriers, whether it be gender, whether it be sex, whether it be your education, whether it be whatever it is. So, how is that going to look for you? How will that look for you? What are you going to do? Do you just stick your head in the sand and say, you know, forget AI, I'm not worried about it? No, no, you don't want to do that. And like some of you say, you know, AI has been here forever, but AI has not been in our face where we're conscious of it. I think that's the big difference here. The big, you know, AI has been here. I agree with you totally. There's a difference between AI being here and what OpenAI's ChatGPT did. OpenAI's ChatGPT came into our living rooms, came into our bedrooms, our bathrooms. It was like it was just airdropped down to us. Not only accessible, but exciting, interesting, all of the above. There was no AI that's been out before that that had that impact that ChatGPT, OpenAI's ChatGPT said. See, it don't matter if people say, we been had that. That's been around. That don't mean nothing. 700 million people didn't have what's been around. They didn't know that they had it. That's the difference making. When you are aware that here's AI, here's a chat bot that I can interact with, here's a barrier of entry and the ease of use that I can understand, that I don't have to call a support team or pay Geek Squad or the real bright guy in the house or down at the corner that knows something about computers. That's the difference maker. We ain't had that in 1980, in 1990, in 2010. None of them. None of them. None of it. When people talk about AI, they're going to go back to late 2023. They're not going to be academic and say it's been around because effectively it hasn't. Technically it has. Effectively it hasn't. Not to the average person walking around in the street. The point is, if you're a knowledge worker, and you 45, you 50, you 55, and you're doing things that doesn't require you to be face to face with a customer, you to be face to face in sales, you to have human engagement and interaction, and you're doing these repetitive tasks that you pride yourself on. Oh, I could work from anywhere. I could do this at home. I don't have to be in the office. Guess what? You better upskill. You better level up. You better become not only aware, which I think you should be, you better become illiterate and identify some practices of adoption to augment your situation. That's if you're a knowledge worker, if you're part of the knowledge economy. Like I tell people, I'm part of the knowledge economy. I am a knowledge worker. I pay all my bills and feed myself and keep my utilities running and give somebody $1 every now and then when they ask me for it through my fingers. Not because I'm lifting something and I'm creating something or moving or none of that. It's through my fingers onto a system, and that's me being a knowledge worker. So that means the things that I do, and I pride myself off of being not having to be sitting in the office or whatever the case might be. I need to be aware of that. That's the reality of it. And if I put my head down into the sand or just close my eyes and look the other way, then what? That's the question. But anyway, don't take my word. Let's listen to the people at the Financial Times.
Artificial intelligence is set to reshape our workplaces.
What does this mean for my job? Am I going to have a job? Will my children have jobs?
Companies are itching to incorporate AI into their systems. But are we really ready for it?
So 2/3 of our desk worker population are still not using this technology.
I'm Isabel Berwick. I host the FT's Working It podcast and write a newsletter about the workplace. In this series, I'll explore some of the most pressing issues around the future of work and talk to senior leaders about how they're making work better.
We have this extraordinary responsibility to shape the new world of work.
For everyone. San Francisco is one of the tech hubs of the world, and AI is definitely in the air.
Generative AI is kind of a subset of artificial intelligence more broadly. There's a long history behind this technology. But really, when we talk about generative AI today, what we're talking about is really something that's emerged over the last 3 years, is translate between text, images, video, audio, even code. Now you're seeing that technology applied to lots of other types of patterns, including things like DNA even. And so the big turning point was with the launch of ChatGPT in 2022 at the end of that year, where for the first time, anybody, any user could literally just communicate directly, interact with a generative AI system. And since then, there's been a lot of these.
Since AI's explosion into public consciousness in 2022, we've also seen a huge push from businesses to harness the power of generative AI to streamline the workplace. The buzz of AI is being felt everywhere. But when talking to many business leaders, one wise person said to me that CEOs have bought Ferraris in the shape of state-of-the-art AI systems. They just haven't given any driving lessons to their staff. A survey of 10,000 desk workers found that the AI benefit that executives are most looking forward to is increased productivity among workers. But leaders' biggest concerns about embracing AI are around data security and privacy, followed by distrust in AI's accuracy and reliability.
What we see in the data is that the executive urgency to incorporate AI is at an all-time high, right? This has increased 7 times over the last 6 months. So this is the most top-of-mind thing for executives worldwide. But what's really interesting is 2/3 of our desk worker population are still not using this technology. So there's this really interesting disconnect.
Salesforce Global HQ in San Francisco is home to Slack's Workforce Lab, which studies how to make work better. The team there has been researching what motivates workers to use AI. I went to meet the head of the Workforce Lab and SVP of Research and Analytics, Christina Janza. So what are the conditions that might make workers more likely to trust AI or be interested to use it?
We've been really interested in sort of understanding this gap of executive urgency and employee adoption. And so what we really wanted to do is let's better understand the humans, right? Why are the humans using it or not using it? And so we did some research to really understand the emotions that people are feeling about AI. And we uncovered 5 different personas that sort of help us understand the AI workplace. The first one is called a maximalist. This is a person who's very excited about the technology. They use it very actively. The second persona, also using AI very actively, is called the underground. And the really interesting thing about the underground is although they're using it and getting a lot of value from it, they're hiding their usage. They're hiding their AI usage because they feel guilty and they feel like people are going to think that they're cheating. And then the next 3 are the ones that aren't really actively using AI. So the rebel is the person who feels like AI is a little bit of a threat. The superfan is very excited about AI, but they aren't using it themselves. They don't know how to start. And the final one is the observer. The observer is simply someone who's in a wait-and-see mentality. They show some interest, they show some caution. They're just not actively engaged, and they're kind of just waiting to see how the whole thing plays out.
Intrigued, I took Slack's test to find out what AI persona I have. What is your AI persona? Take the Slack AI persona quiz to find out who you are. How frequently do you use AI tools for work-related tasks? Probably a couple of times a week. How do you feel about the use of AI in the workplace? Excited, guilty, indifferent, concerned, relieved, reluctant? Excited, actually. I'm concerned about AI replacing my job. I'm quite old, so I'm just going to put 2 for that. I'm interested in learning or further developing AI skills. Yes, I'm a 5 on that. I'm a maximalist. As a maximalist, I can see the benefits that AI can offer. But with companies full of staff with such diverging views on AI, is it a good idea to have everyone speeding ahead? So do you think that organisations should have put guardrails in place first? I mean, AI is moving so quickly, that's hard. Is there a trust piece missing here, I guess is what I'm saying?
There is a trust piece missing. I mean, what we see in the data is that only 7% of workers worldwide fully trust AI, right? And that's to be expected with new technology. You have to use it, you have to get used to it in order to really understand whether you can trust it. The other thing that's really interesting about trust is there's a big manager component here. People who feel trusted by their manager are twice as likely to actually try AI.
What I think you're saying is that there's a very human part to this. Like, do you get on with your colleagues? Do you trust your manager? Do you feel safe to communicate where you've got things wrong?
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy you said it like that, because I think so much of the conversation that we're having is around the technology, right? All of the amazing advances that we're making, all of the amazing things that this technology can do. But you can build the coolest technology in the world, and if people don't use it, it doesn't matter. And so to your question about should people have come up with guidelines earlier, maybe, but I also think we need to give leaders a break, right? This is new technology, it's developing so quickly, and we're just trying to catch up. And so what we suggest is it's not too late, right? Now's the time to really sit down and figure out what is your policy going to be? What are you going to allow your employees to do? And just be clear. The most important thing is transparency.
Slack has found that when businesses cater for all types of AI personas and have defined safe usage guidelines, employees are nearly 6 times more likely to use AI tools in the workplace. But in a recent survey of desk workers, 43% say they've received no guidance from their leaders or organisation on how to use AI tools at work.
These models are potentially so powerful. They are remarkable in what they could provide to us as humans. And if we think that analysis and structured thinking and creativity is a net economic good, we really want to be able to distribute that as widely as we can.
Tech investor and founder of Exponential View, Azim Azhar, looks at the impact of AI on society. I invited Azim to the FT's offices to find out more about what AI can and can't do for the workplace. How are you using AI yourself at the moment?
One of my favorites is that I have a number of different AI assistants who will attend my meetings. So one is extremely good at taking a detailed transcript. And there's another assistant which evaluates my performance in the meetings. And I'll get an email and it'll say, you did this well, you didn't do this so well, next time try doing this. What some of the academic research has shown is that the more expertise you have, the better you can get out of the system. The reason why somebody who's senior can do better with AI than someone who perhaps is junior is because when you use a generative AI tool, it's a little bit like delegating tasks. And who best delegates tasks? Well, people who've been delegating tasks for 15 or 20 years. That is the senior exec.
What are the downsides that are obvious to you as someone who is in that world all the time?
One of the biggest downsides is that this is still quite a complicated technology. And I think people who've used AI know that it can also be a little bit unreliable. And when you have a complicated
So I'm going to just jump in here and make a quick comment about that. It is true. All of the AI tools, all of the LLMs, the chatbots, the Google's Gemini, the OpenAI's ChatGPT, Anthropic's Claude, Elon Musk's XAI, Perplexity, Cursor, whichever one we talk about, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to do things like hallucinate, as they say. This is just a technical term that's being used where it's like, okay, you're just out of wax with where I'm at with it. They're going to be out of context a lot of times. But what I say to people is this: find me a human being that doesn't have those same character issues. The difference between these large language models and a lot of these other artificial intelligence tools is they're going to work to get better. They're not going to be stuck on stupid like us human beings. See, they're not going to be stubborn about the hallucinations and about the context or the inconsistencies because they're not sentient. They don't have emotions. That's us. That's human beings. That's our flaw. So when somebody says, well, I put in ChatGPT or I put in Gemini or I put in such and such and it came back with a wrong answer. Okay, go get somebody who won't come back with a wrong answer then. There you go. That's your answer. If you're looking for a reason not to adopt and not to learn and explore and try to identify different utilities and business use case, personal use cases for any of these AI tools, you're going to find them because you're looking for that. But if you understand some things about how algorithms work, deep learning, neural networks, machine learning, what I'm telling you is it's going to get better. That's what I'm telling you. It's going to get better. I had a conversation with a brother this morning here at Starbucks, 7 o'clock this morning. We talked for an hour, like we talked easily for over an hour. And we was talking about AI, identifying use cases, utility, what it does, what it doesn't do, privacy, other things like that. His initial position was, I don't use it. I really don't look forward to using it. It's been suggested to me to use this and to use that or whatever. And I listened to him because I understand it. When we got finished talking though, he at least was willing to explore identifying some use case. Why? Because he talked about creativity. He talked about privacy. And these are very legitimate considerations or aspects that you want to be aware of. People think, or many people think, that people who use AI are just doing what's called the cognitive offload, right? You're just offloading what we would do as human beings with our cognitive abilities. That's not true. If you have a creative piece, which this brother has a creative piece, he's writing a book, he's an artist, he's writing a song, he's a what I would call a a life coach. So he has a lot of idioms, he has a lot of statements, sayings, some philosophies, different things like that that he shares with a traffic that he already has. He shares with his followers, different things like that. His community, right? His social community. That's his origination. That's him being creative. That's him understanding what he's reading, what he's studying, what he's seeing, and he's actually doing that. Now, what does he do next? I say, look, you're going to use the AI as a tool. You're going to use that to complement. You're going to use that as a staff you don't have the budget for. You're going to use that as somebody on your organizational chart because you don't have the company. So you create a GPT that gives you feedback. You create another GPT that does the accounting work, does the budget. You create another GPT that might do the tech support. And then those one or two human beings that are down with you, that's in your circle and y'all partner. Now you have an organizational chart, whereas you and two other human beings and six other GPTs. And if you don't like calling them GPTs and you don't like calling them chatbots because that make you feel strange, call them team members, but give each one of them a role. And he just looked at me and shook his head with a smirk on his face because it makes sense. It just makes sense. If you don't want it to make sense, I'm not here to convince you that it should because you don't want it anyway. But if you a CEO, a senior management, anybody, that's trying to do more with less in a more efficient and effective way, you're not doing the cognitive offload. It's your idea, it's your creative work. You're just using tools as you would somebody from tech support. You're just using a utility as you would a feature set. You're just using an AI as you would a software. What's the difference? Do you feel like your work is not original if you take a picture and then you open up Adobe Photoshop to etch and sketch and take the ink pen to draw around or mask the photo or cut it out? You're not saying it's not original then. Of course, you're looking crazy taking 3 hours to do it correctly and then call your girlfriend or somebody else, hey, don't you know how to do this? That's the experience you want? Then have at it. I'm not here to win you over like that. What I'm saying is make it make sense. And if you don't want to use it, if your thing is it's not perfect, go get the perfect thing yourself, your friends, your husbands, your wives, your girlfriends, your kids. Go get the perfect things to do it. And when you get those things that don't make mistakes and get it right all the time, text me. Put it in the comment. I want to use them too. I'm not in love with AI. I want to use them. This idea that, but it didn't get the answer right. You didn't get the answer right. And you proud of your degree.
Technology that's unreliable, you have got to be prepared for things to go a bit askew and awry. And I think firms have to figure out how they experiment and invest at a pace while recognizing that the ground is going to be shifting quite a lot. A second issue is going to be about the temptation that companies may have to use this first and foremost as a cost-cutting exercise. And the reason they need to be a little bit careful is that this is an unstable market and an unstable environment. And so one of the things that I urge bosses to do is to be much, much more circumspect about headcount reductions, because you never know exactly where the pieces are going to fall.
AI is set to be a skills equaliser, helping weaker employees to level up. But Azim has highlighted the complexity of adoption and that it is CEOs who have to lead the charge.
I think what's been different with the generative AI wave is that it is so easy to use, and it doesn't require changing, your back-end systems or replacing big contracts that you might have with enterprise software companies or whatever. Because in a lot of cases, tech companies that we already have relationships with in the enterprise, like say Microsoft or Google, these are the companies offering generative AI, so can easily pitch to business leaders saying, we're the world's biggest enterprise software companies, and we think this is going to change the world. There's been a lot of buzz now, verging on maybe even hype around, if you don't adopt this now, you're going to be left behind. So it's a good job of both marketing and a sort of consumer-led technology.
HR software company Lattice has made the move to becoming an AI-powered platform. I went to their HQ to see its capabilities.
So right now, I'm logged in as Olivia's manager, and what you'll see on the right is a summary of all of the feedback Olivia received over the past year.
Lattice's AI software takes all the available data, feedback, previous reviews, and learns the tone and grammar of the user. It then creates an authentic performance review.
With the best will in the world, some managers are terrible at feedback. They give bad feedback, they're blunt, they're clumsy, they may offend people. What can Lattice do to stop that happening?
So what we are actually maintaining is a set of what good feedback looks like. It should be inclusive, it should be actionable, it should be concise. Regardless of what level of experience you have with feedback delivery, it's up levels your writing in a way that converges with best feedback writing practices.
So it saves bad managers from themselves, essentially.
Yes.
I love it. Every time we've had advances in tech, we've had to work harder. Is the promise of AI that this time we'll get it right?
We have more tech that's supposed to simplify, that requires more tech to integrate, but our collaboration has not been easier because there's too much tech. This is what I think is so powerful with AI, is that it really is simplifying things down from an experience standpoint. The way that we will experience the technology is the way that we interact as humans. It doesn't matter if you're in system A or system B, that data is brought together behind the scenes. So when you ask it a question, it can give you an answer.
So what are you finding are the main use?
That's one of the, you could say one of the I gotchas, or you could say that actually is one of the pros. You know, you say, well, you got people who don't even have a background, don't have experience, don't have the proper teaching in certain areas or certain domains, and they're able to just go in and use coding assistance. They're able to just go in and just deal with technology at a level that they really haven't been trained. They don't look good on whatever, right? Here's what I say to people. For years, for decades, okay, for a generation, maybe two, this coding thing, okay, understanding C sharp, learning Python, understanding C++, understanding 100 years ago COBOL, and all of these coding languages. The misnomer or the facade or the smoke and mirror then was you had to have this high IQ. You just had to be so good at math. You just had to be brilliant at the top of your class. All that's BS. All that's BS. Coding is nothing but a bunch of damn alphabets and special characters that you already know. You already know the alphabets A through Z. You already know numbers 0 through 9. You already know the special characters. How they are arranged and presented depending on the rules of engagement, the protocols. That's what it's about. But the industry in and of itself, along with some other things, have been getting away with this mystique in this air that you needed to be so bright. Now, with the coding assistance and the advent of AI coming right to your damn phone, right in your hand, in your bathroom, in your living room, in your kitchen, in the schools. Now you see you don't need to be that brilliant. It just needed to be exposed and taught and conveyed. And the monopoly of who could tell it to you had to be broken up. That's all. Because now, this is the easiest time than ever for people to learn how to code or understand what goes on with coding languages. And I mean several of them. I'll say it again. If you never understood coding in your life, if you've been raised to think you had to be special in your education and intellect, and you had to have these high-ass SAT scores and go to these great schools, that shit wasn't nothing but a smoke and mirror. Because it's just a bunch of damn alphabets and numbers and special characters arranged in particular ways with rules. And if you want to put it to the test, it's the perfect time. Again, why do you think they letting these people go? Wasn't nothing great about these people. Well, let me finish this.
Cases for it, and also how are people responding in a perhaps more cautious way?
A bunch of information about structured data around your employee record, your compensation, your performance, the feedback you've received, all of your skills that you may have. And by being able to bring all of that together and just make your work life easier right now to answer questions and give you guidance, that's where we're at right now with AI. And we're just going to see this develop faster and faster and faster, which is amazing. But then it also makes you question, how do I skill up, my teams, my employees to match these fast changing expectations? And how do we govern it?
Over the next year, tech companies will unleash the next wave of innovation to business. AI agents. These Gen AI assistants won't just tell you what to do, but will be given access to perform actions on your behalf. But are senior leaders and employees really willing to hand over their autonomy? Given access.
Yeah, that's the thing you want to be mindful of, right? There's a difference between this prompting back and forth where you basically are asking the chat bot, whether it's OpenAI's ChatGPT or Google's Gemini or Anthropic's Claude or Elon Musk's XAI or whatever, going back and forth with this prompting, right? And then there's another level of that prompting where it's contextual. So now we go from just prompting to having this back and forth, hey, this, and they give you a response, hey, this, or whatever, and then you add some context to it, more to the point, staying in the spirit of things, right? But then there's something called agentic AI. That's the one that's going to relieve and remove and replace people. That's the supplanter, the agentic AI, because the agentic AI is actually going to be able to perform tasks. So these first low-level customer service people you talk to today, these first-level tech support people you talk to today, in the next 3 years, a lot of them are going to be gone. The reason why a lot of them are going to be gone, they can't do the work anyway. All they doing is pulling up accounts, giving you a read-only version of what they see. They can't do the work. The agentic AI, the agent AI, will actually be able to perform the task. And you say, how? Do I just turn over all of my credentials and all of my access and all of this stuff? Well, it's no different than what you're doing now. If you're using two-factor authentication now, you'll have that same level of security. If you're working at some corporate system or something like that, typically it's done through APIs, application programming interfaces. Now that's going to be replaced with a whole slew of MPCs, model context protocols. That's what's going to happen. Okay, so these MCPs, they're going to be replacing the APIs, but the agentic AI is going to be able to actually do the work. And that's the one that's going to be replacing people or reducing these tasks that people do to the point where HR is going to start redefining what the job title is, redefining what's required to do that job. That's just the reality of it. And it should be, because that's the way it works progressively.
Access to perform actions on your behalf. But are senior leaders and employees really willing to hand over their autonomy?
The questions then is, how are we going to manage it? How are we going to hold it accountable? How are we going to be transparent with decisions that we're making? There is no handbook. So hope can't be our strategy that we're going to get it right. We have to hold ourselves accountable and be very transparent so that we can learn every step of the way. And so that's the thing for leaders, is that how do you build trust with your employees, with communication, education, and a deep understanding of what you're intending the AI to do.
So things are moving very quickly in the AI world. Is it too quickly? Should leaders be pressing pause, or how should one best be implementing?
It's a great question, because one could say you move slow to go fast. The other thing is you need to be rapidly experimenting to learn along the way. What I will go to is the thing that is holding people back from going fast is their data not being in order, integrations not being set up, and people not having understanding for what's happening. And then you can move very fast because people will see, oh, I'm getting this value. Oh, that my job just got a lot easier.
I think Sarah's reassuringly unsure about the ways that AI is going to change how we work. It's the biggest workplace shift in our lifetimes. No wonder there's a lot of hype and some trepidation. We will only find by trial and error what works. And companies like Lattice are asking the questions now so that we can all learn later.
In the past 18 months, more than 170,000 tech workers in the United States have lost their jobs.
Used car startup Kavak is the latest global tech name to cut jobs.
In the first 5 months of 2025 alone, more than 74,000 layoffs were recorded in tech companies, representing a 35% increase compared to the same period the previous year.
Meta has never axed jobs on this scale before. 11,000 positions, or about 13% of its workforce.
In fields like programming, the losses are even more alarming. Between 2022 and 2024, 27% of jobs in this area disappeared, according to official data.
Jeffrey Hinton, the so-called godfather of AI and a pioneer in the field, warns some industries may be hit harder than others.
At the same time, average tech salaries have fallen by more than 12% nationwide. All of this has led tech workers to question whether the industry is still worth it. So, where are all the tech workers going? Mass layoffs in tech have not only reduced staff numbers, but also triggered significant labor migration. Thousands of highly skilled workers have been forced to seek new opportunities outside the traditional tech sector. Some individuals have managed to quickly rejoin smaller companies or take on similar roles, though often with less favorable compensation. Others have chosen to switch industries, start their own ventures, or pursue further education or professional development programs. Even though the overall unemployment rate in the United States has remained around 4.2% during the first half of 2025, the impact on tech employment has been significant.
Layoffs are only above average in 3 sectors: tech, finance, and trucking.
While the specific unemployment rate in the tech sector was 3.4% in May, this figure does not reflect the drop in entry-level hiring. It also fails to capture the increase in precarious work conditions, such as freelancing or temporary contracts. Among those who lost their jobs, about half managed to re-enter the labor market within 6 months. However, the types of jobs they found often differed from their previous roles. Only 32% were able to return to tech companies, usually smaller or less established ones. The rest transitioned into sectors such as finance, consulting, or manufacturing.
As major companies like Meta, Google, Salesforce, and more cut thousands of jobs, other companies, some smaller, some in different sectors, were eager to bring in new talent. Abbott, for example, has hired more than 200 tech-specific employees in the past 6 months, and a company spokesperson says they plan to hire hundreds more in the coming years.
According to various studies, around 10% of these workers move into the financial industry, where there is sustained demand for professionals with experience in systems, data, and security. Another 8% join consulting firms, while approximately 6% find opportunities in the healthcare sector, an area undergoing rapid digital transformation. Others are employed by logistics or manufacturing companies that are adopting smart technologies to optimize operations. In this context, the use of buyouts or voluntary exit programs has become common in large tech companies, a strategy that allows for discrete workforce reductions without resorting to formal layoffs. Under this model, employees are offered financial compensation to voluntarily leave their positions, helping companies avoid negative headlines and minimize reputational damage. Although framed as voluntary, these packages are often strategically targeted at specific roles or departments. Companies like Google, Meta, and Salesforce have adopted this practice over the past 2 years, offering severance packages that include extra weeks of pay, extended benefits, and job placement assistance.
Google is offering buyouts to employees across several of its divisions, including the unit that houses its search, ad, and commerce businesses.
The decline in opportunity.
So, guys, here's the deal, right? You know, this whole idea that AI is going to be able to do everything. No, AI is not going to be able to do everything. But you want to get away from this binary thought. Get away from this, it's on and it's off. That's not what's going on, okay? What's going on is there's going to be a slope. There's going to be a movement. There's going to be a trajectory. All of these repetitive tasks that do not require customer sales, human interaction, engagement, face-to-face. Those repetitive things are the low-hanging fruit of the AI. So example, if you're customer service, you're the first level. If you're tech support, you're the first level. You ain't really doing no work, no way. I call you and you answer the phone and you tell me what you see in my account, And then as soon as I need something done, you tell me why you can't do it. That's what happens. You tell me why you can't do it. And once you tell me why you can't do it, I'm upset with you. Now I'm barking at you because you're like the little miniature gatekeeper between me needing something corrected or changed, and they paying you to tell me you can't do it. I don't need that. AI can not only tell me what it sees, AI can also actually do the work. That's the agentic AI. See, it's the agent, it's the agentic AI that's going to replace all these first level customer service people that can't do any work for you anyway when you call. Yeah. That's why these people have to upskill, level up if they're going to continue to be knowledge workers. Because the day when, oh, I could just do customer service, not at that level, you won't. Trust me, that's going to be over with in the next 36 to 60 months. No doubt about that.
At major tech firms has also fueled a rise in self-employment. Platforms such as Upwork, Fiverr, and TopTool have become common channels for offering professional services in software development, data analysis, or system maintenance. This model offers some flexibility but does not guarantee financial stability or access to traditional benefits.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with Upwork or Fiverr or any of these websites or portals that this young lady was speaking about, but Fiverr, Fiverr, that's one of those sites that a lot of people use to, outsource some project or some piece of a project that they needed completed. Now that could have been something dealing with video, it could be other graphics, arts, or content creation. It could be something as simple as resumes, website building, database creation, tech support, anything. Fiverr is one of those sites like Upwork where you as an individual, you as a entrepreneur or a contractor, if you want to say that, you basically go there and register and upload your skill set or your resume or your portfolio. And then when people need things done and they don't want to hire you, or they want a very reduced price that's way lower than maybe 30 to 40% lower than market price to hire that same consultant through the brick and mortar of a company, you go to Fiverr. Now, the CEO of Fiverr, I think his name is Daniel or Donald Micah or something like that. He said that he sent the email to his group, to everybody at his company. And he said he basically told them, you're not going to be replaced by AI in and of itself. You're going to be replaced by people who know AI. So the advantage that people who understand their current situation, their current jobs, their current role, those are the people that want to adopt the uses of AI. They want to identify utility for AI because they can augment their current skill set and productivity and efficiency with AI. But his message to them is, if you still walking around here doing what you do now as you work here, and you can't basically show or demonstrate that you can raise what you do with the adoption of AI, you will be replaced. I mean, it's just as simple as that. And it makes sense.
For many, freelance work serves as a temporary solution while they develop a new career strategy or acquire more in-demand skills. At the same time, there has been growing interest in entrepreneurship. Some workers, particularly those with more experience and access to funding networks, have used severance pay or savings to launch startups. These ventures often focus on emerging areas such as educational technology, digital health, or decentralized financial services. Another path that has gained relevance in recent months is the transition of tech workers into the public sector, particularly in areas related to cybersecurity. The Department of Defense, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security, and other government agencies have intensified their hiring efforts to strengthen systems against growing digital threats. This shift represents an opportunity for those seeking greater job stability and a sense of public mission. While government salaries are generally lower than those in the private sector, many professionals value the improved work-life balance, long-term benefits, and the chance to contribute to national security using their technical expertise. The adaptation process to this new landscape has also involved a strong emphasis on continued education. Many professionals are turning to certifications and intensive programs in areas like artificial intelligence due to its growing presence across a wide range of industries.
Cars that drive themselves, facial recognition, detecting cancer potentially better than a doctor. These are just some of the technologies that artificial intelligence is fueling.
Specialized courses on platforms such as Google Cloud, TensorFlow, or Python have grown in popularity, along with graduate programs at universities focused on technology and business. This trend reflects a collective effort to remain relevant in an increasingly competitive and specialized market, where general knowledge or traditional work experience is no longer enough. However, the process of re-entering the job market has not been uniform. There are significant disparities based on gender, age, and prior experience. Among those laid off from tech companies, women have faced greater challenges. Only 31% secured a new job within 3 months, compared to 38% of men. Mid-career professionals have also encountered more difficulties due to perceptions of outdated skills or bias in recruitment processes. At the same time, recent graduates encountered more.
So you can hear it right there. You heard what the report says, right? Mid-level career professionals, they face a bigger challenge. Why? Because if you 45, 50 years old, even though you've been working there successfully doing something, whatever that knowledge worker does for years, when you go to look for another job, unless you level up, upskill, and get up to speed with what's going on now, you're going to sound dated to that potential employer. You're going to sound dated. That's just the reality of it. Imagine you've been working at a telephone company. You've been working at it doesn't even matter, but you're a knowledge worker. You've been working with these systems. You've been doing what you're doing. You're familiar with operating systems. You use the Office suite. You know about email. You know about all of the technical stuff that's used at that company. You've been trained on different systems as they bring in new software packages, ERPs, or whatever the case is. Now, you're let go. None of these companies are going to say, we're letting you go because of AI. None of them are going to say that. They're going to come up with something else. It's going to have the same result. You won't be working there no more, but it'll be called something else. You go look for a job. If you sit up there telling somebody that boring ass story about what you've been doing for the last 25 years, they're going to look at you like you dated. That next interview, if you 45, 50, 55 years old, you got to go in. Sure, you're going to talk about what you've been doing, but you're going to get right to the other energy. Hey, with the advent of AI, while I was at that company or while I was looking for a job, there's use cases. I can understand how enterprises can actually do more with that. With the role I played at that company, I was in charge of, let's say, filing systems or organizing this or whatever like that. And then you start explaining or giving the energy how you identified some AI tools that you found that would make that even better, that allows you to do your work even smarter. It doesn't matter if they use that tool or not. But what they're getting from you is, here's a person that we look at somebody mid towards the end of their career, but we can sense from them they have adopted the whole approach to using AI tools and resources. And if you could just do that, you can increase your chances of some opportunity. But if you go in there with the energy that couldn't nobody file a folder like you, and it don't matter what AI messed everything up at our company, sounding like the last damn slave, you'll never get hired again, not as a knowledge worker. Because you're gonna come across with that energy that they want to get rid of that they no longer want around. So you have to think that through. You're not 21, you're not 23. You can't move it the same way. I can't move it the same way. I mean, I don't want to, but that's just me. Hang on.
Difficulties due to perceptions of outdated skills or bias in recruitment processes. At the same difficulties due to perceptions of outdated job within in 3 months, compared to 38% of men. Mid-career professionals have also encountered more difficulties due to perceptions of outdated skills or bias in recruitment processes. At the same time, recent graduates face a restrictive job market, with entry-level openings down 50% since 2023.
This summer, college graduates in America are looking for a hire at a time when their unemployment rate is at 6%. That's nearly 2% higher than the overall national average.
Companies justify this reduction with budget constraints and a growing trend toward automating low-complexity tasks. The result of this phenomenon is an increasingly segmented tech job market. On one hand, there is high demand for highly qualified profiles with expertise in artificial intelligence, systems architecture, advanced automation, and data analytics. On the other hand, access to entry-level roles and generalist positions is narrowing, creating a divide between those already established in the industry and those trying to enter for the first time. But this divide is also reflected in salaries. While some senior professionals continue to earn over $200,000 a year in markets like San Francisco or New York, average wages have declined nationwide, particularly affecting those in transition or at the start of their careers.
The top tech companies are facing hiring freezes and layoffs due to cost-cutting measures.
This new scenario presents challenges not only for workers, but also for educational institutions and policymakers. There is a growing need to promote reskilling programs, incentives for hiring new talent, and social protection schemes for independent workers. Additionally, it is essential to ensure transparency in layoff and hiring processes, as well as to facilitate mechanisms for labor mobility across sectors that make full use of this highly qualified workforce.
At Economy Media, your opinion matters to us. Subscribe.
Well, no.
Now, coming up on this clip, this is the CEO and founder of Anthropic, Dario Amodei. Now, I know it sounds crazy that this guy has a multi-billion-dollar company that didn't exist 6 years ago. But their LLM is Claude, and Claude is one of the top coding assistants out there, like Cursor, okay? But this is the CEO, Dario Amodei, talking about the warning that should go out about how jobs will be affected in the next 3 to 5 years. And he's saying that he doesn't understand why other CEOs and politicians aren't sending the message to the people that are going to be affected. So let's just take a listen to him.
A well-known and respected tech CEO, Dario Amodei, who heads a cutting-edge AI company called Anthropic, is raising alarms tonight about AI's potential impact on employment that could soon be felt. While he says AI can lead to incredible advancements like medical breakthroughs and boost the economy, he believes it could also lead to half of entry-level white-collar jobs disappearing and 10 to 20% unemployment in the next 1 to 5 years. It's something that's been talked about within tech circles for a while, but rarely so starkly and so publicly. I spoke to him just before air about that and other implications he thinks AI may have on society. Dario, you've said that AI could wipe out half of all entry-level white-collar jobs and spike unemployment to 10 to 20%. How soon might that happen?
Well, let's, well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. But just to back up a little bit, you know, I've been building AI for over a decade. And I think maybe the most salient feature of the technology and what is driving all of this is how fast the technology is getting better. A couple of years ago, you could say that AI models were maybe as good as a smart high school student. I would say that now they're as good as a smart college student and sort of reaching past that. I really worry, particularly at the entry level, that the AI models are very much at the center of what an entry level human worker would do. And so it's hard to estimate, exactly what the impact would be. And there's always this question of adaptation. And these technology changes have happened before, but I think what is striking to me about this AI boom is that it's bigger and it's broader and it's moving faster than anything has before. And so compared to previous technology changes, I'm a little bit more worried about the labor impact simply because it's happening so fast that yes, people will adapt, but they may not adapt fast enough. And so there may be an adjustment period.
You are running an incredibly important company in AI, and you know this better than anybody, or as well as all the names we know, people, Sam Altman and others who are working, Elon Musk in AI. Why are you raising the alarm? Because it's not necessarily, I would think, in your best interest, because a lot of the messages we hear from, at least publicly, from some AI CEOs and stuff is a little bit more calming, like, these agents are going to be great in your life, and yes, there may be problems, but, writ large, this is a fantastic thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason I'm raising the alarm is that I think others haven't as much, and I think someone needs to say it. To be clear, and I recognize it's always a difficult balance, right? I'm aware of my position that I'm building this technology while also expressing concerns about it, and the reason I'm doing both of those things is, one, I think the benefits are massive, and we need to find a way to achieve the benefits and mitigate or prevent the harms. And the second thing I would say is, look, there are, as you mentioned, 6 or 7 companies in the U.S. building this technology, right? If we stop doing it tomorrow, the rest would continue. If all of us somehow stopped doing it tomorrow, then China would just beat us. And I don't think China winning in this technology is, I don't think that helps anyone or makes the situation any better.
I do want to read something that Sam Altman, your former boss at OpenAI, said in September. He was saying that AI can cause significant change in labor markets, good and bad. He went on to say that most jobs will change more slowly than most people think. And then he said this, and I want to just read it word for word. He said, many of the jobs we do today would have looked like trifling wastes of time to people a few hundred years ago. But nobody is looking back at the past wishing they were a lamplighter. If a lamplighter could see the world today, he would think the prosperity all around him was unimaginable. And if we could fast forward 100 years from today, the prosperity all around us would feel just as unimaginable. For younger people, I should say lamplighters was actually a job. People went around lighting lamps on the streets. I think a lot of people may not even know what a lamplighter is. But do you think Sam Altman is wrong?
Yeah, so, I think there are some things I agree with about that, and then there are some things that I think are too optimistic. So, I definitely agree that, AI, if we succeed at it, can grow the pie greatly, right? I wouldn't be surprised if economic growth is much higher than it is today as a macroscopic phenomenon, right? That AI allows society as a whole to be more productive. So
let me just say, because you've previously in the past said you've described a future where cancer is cured, the economy grows at 10% a year, the budget is balanced, and 20% of people don't have jobs.
That's exactly what I was getting to, right? Where I agree with all the positive potential. I think that isn't wrong. But I think the quote you just flashed is maybe too optimistic, maybe too sanguine about the ability for people to adapt. People have adapted to past technological changes, but I'll say again, everyone I've talked to has said this technological change looks different. It looks faster. It looks harder to adapt to. It's broader. The pace of progress keeps catching people off guard. And so I don't know exactly how fast, the job concerns are going to come. I don't know how fast people are going to adapt. It's possible it'll all be okay. But I think that's too sanguine an approach. I think we do need to be raising the alarm. I think we do need to be concerned about it. I think policymakers do need to worry about it. if they do worry and they do act, then maybe we can prevent it. But we're not going to prevent it just by saying everything's going to be okay.
Do we as a society even understand the potential inequalities that this may amplify? And also the impact just on what, like I have little kids, I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. What do they grow up aspiring to if machines can do pretty much everything better? What does it do to initiative or drive or striving? And I don't know the answer to that,
Yes.
but it concerns me.
Let's take those questions one by one. Those do concern me, but I do have thoughts on them. In terms of inequality, I'm worried about this. There's an inherent social contract in democracy where ultimately, the ordinary person has a certain amount of leverage because they're contributing to the economy. If that leverage goes away, then it's hard to make democracy. It's harder to make democracies work, and it's harder to prevent concentration of power. And so, we need to make sure that the ordinary person maintains economic leverage and has a way to make a living, or our society, our social contract won't work. And that's why I think it's important.
During testing, your company's latest chatbot, Claude 4, was capable of what was described as extreme blackmail. Specifically, I understand it threatened to reveal an engineer's extramarital affair when it was told it would be taken offline and replaced. This was a simulation. Were you surprised by that? And what is that? I mean, that freaked me out when I read that. What does that mean?
Yeah. So just to be clear and to put this in context, I mean, this was, as you said, a behavior that emerged during kind of extreme testing of the model. So if you were to make an analogy to, cars, this is like, you deliberately put the car on the iciest road possible, you mess with the brakes, and, you do that so you can see if you really stress test the thing, you can, then you can make the crash dummy blow up.
Right.
So this isn't something that the model does in practice and actual usage. But the reason we stress test the models this way is, that's the best way to test for and prevent problems in the real world. So
right.
Icy roads do exist.
Yeah. No, but you know exactly. You want to turn every adversarial condition up to the max all at once. Right. And it's only by testing in that you get the model to not do that in the real world. So I wasn't surprised by these behaviors. But this is an example of how we have to be very careful in how we take control of AI systems.
I mean, does it? The obvious question is, does that pretend AI becoming self-aware, and could that lead to dire consequences?
I certainly don't exclude the concept. We have a couple people who are actually working on this topic. As crazy as it sounds, do AI systems have morally significant feelings? I would guess that they don't right now, but when you run an AI company, these crazy seeming questions are things that you study. So I would say this is probably not the case now, but again, the field is advancing so fast that I don't think you can exclude even crazy sounding things like this.
What are practical steps people should take to be prepared? I mean, ordinary citizens, me, lawmakers, what do you advise?
Yeah,
particularly lawmakers, I guess, really.
Yeah, well, let's take them one by one. I think for ordinary citizens, I think it's very important, learn to use AI, learn to understand where the technology is going. If you're not blindsided, you have a much better chance of adapting. There's some, better world, at least in the short term, at least for now, we should take it bit by bit where everyone learns to use AI better, and that speeds up the adaptation that is definitely going to happen eventually, but it'll be less painful if it happens quickly. For lawmakers, I would say really be aware of these issues. And, we're trying very hard to produce data on the economic impact, not taking off the table, some fairly radical notions. Like I wouldn't exclude the notion of, levying a tax on AI companies, right? If AI creates huge total wealth, a lot of that will by default go to the AI companies and less to ordinary people. And so, definitely not in my economic interest to say that, but I think this is something we should consider, and I think it shouldn't be a partisan thing.
Dario, thank you so much. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Anderson.
Fox Business Alert. Now to the story of the day. NVIDIA. Wall Street started the session kind of with a chip on its shoulder, sending shares of the AI chip king as low as $176. But right now, the stock is creeping its way back. And a few minutes.
The cloud to enterprise on-prem to robotic systems. And so it's going to be a really exciting future. And we're going to have all kinds of machinery help us do things.
And that would mean that it's helping people have more free time. I mean, you talk about productivity gains. So that really becomes the big question. How do you envision our world changing? Do we start to see every country go to a 4-day work week because productivity gains from AI have been so meaningful? I mean, do you see the chatbots become people's friends so dating apps go away? In your mind, what are those future prospects?
I have to admit that I'm afraid to say that we are going to be busier in the future than now. And the reason for that is because a lot of different things that take a long time to do are now faster to do. And I'm always waiting for work to get done because I've got more ideas. Most countries, most companies have more ideas than we know what to pursue. And so the more productive we are, the more opportunity we get to go pursue new ideas. I fully expect GDP to grow. I expect productivity to increase. I actually expect us to have more things to do. It is probably the case. And Liz, I'm hopeful for that day too, so that we have 4-day work weeks and so that we could, spend more time on the weekends with family and get some reading done and do some traveling. And, nothing is better than that. We came from a world of 7-day work weeks, and now we're in 5-day work weeks. And every industrial revolution leads to some change in social behavior. But I expect the economy to be doing very well because of AI and automation, and I expect us to enrich our lives. Life quality will get better, of course, over time. Some jobs will go away. Many jobs will be new and invented. But one thing for sure, every job will be changed as a result of AI.
Jensen, it's a fascinating time, and people should take note of NVIDIA's position.
I don't even know what to tell you there. I mean, you guys probably understand it way better than me, but I don't even know what to tell you there. What I would suggest to everybody that's a knowledge worker is that you level up, upskill, and just try to identify that next training that you either want your company to pay for, or try to identify that next training that you're willing to invest yourself. That's what I would strongly suggest. Because this idea, if you're a knowledge worker, that you're just gonna stick your head under the ground like you're some type of ostrich and ignore AI, it could almost create opportunities for you if you're looking for it that way, but it's definitely like, the CEO and founder of NVIDIA says, it's going to redefine a lot of jobs, and a lot of these positions are just simply going to go away.
Alphabet, Amazon, Meta, and Microsoft are all slashing middle management, part of a broader shift in how tech operates in the AI era. Mackenzie Sigalos joins us now with more. Mackenzie, this is so interesting just in terms of organizational structure for these tech companies and kind of what makes them more nimble in this AI race.
Hey, good morning, Leslie. So building on your reporting on this exact topic earlier in the week, I spoke to the team at Stanford that's tracking real-time payroll data from ADP, and they found that the jobs most exposed to AI, like coding and accounting, have seen a 13% drop in employment for workers under 25. And losing that bottom rung, they say, is a warning sign of disruption that's moving up the ladder. And we're already seeing that show up in big tech. CNBC's Jen Elias learned that Alphabet cut 35% of its small team managers in the past year, a shift that's echoed at Amazon, Meta, and Microsoft. Mark Zuckerberg has long pushed to cut bloat, and at Amazon, Andy Jassy said the corporate workforce will shrink as generative AI tools take hold. He also told employees there were too many pre-meetings for the pre-meetings and ordered a 15% boost in the ratio of individual contributors to managers. A Yale professor studying the corporate organizational behavior calls it the great flattening, where the goal is fewer layers between top execs and the people actually building product. Google's former HR chief under Eric Schmidt tells me that hyperscalers are likely cutting staff to fund chips, and they're very pricey AI engineers. But he also warns that gutting entry-level roles now will leave a hollowed-out pipeline and a shortage of managers later. Leslie?
Mackenzie, it's all really fascinating. There's a great book that I read earlier this year called The Geek Way by Andrew McAfee, and they talk about these principles that some of the most successful tech companies have employed in order to be successful in terms of their organizational structure, one of which is ownership and kind of giving employees more control over their daily lives, cutting out some of the middle management. And I just wonder, as we think about some of these companies and how they're shifting the way they think, they've gotten really big and successful because they've employed some of these principles. Do you feel like those are now changing as a result of the technology and just the ultimate pressure and CapEx spending and everything that's happening? It needs to be even more flat and nimble than kind of the structure that's gotten them the success so far.
So with Alphabet, it's almost been this boomerang effect where under Eric Schmidt, he introduced something called the Rule of Seven, where you couldn't be a manager unless you managed at least 7 people. And that was designed with a view to basically spread them out so they didn't become bureaucrats, spread them a little bit thin. So they aggressively strayed from that. And we're seeing that show up with the kind of cuts that they're making in the past year. But to your larger question, is it a shift in technology that's behind this rethinking of the org chart? And it really is a combination of factors. I mean, this began in 2023 during Mark Zuckerberg's year of really returning to efficiency, something that Wall Street has rewarded the stock for after a punishing stretch. And that was about expediting the decision-making process, really looking to compress that layer that separates the top executives who are making decisions from people who are actually building the tech. And now the people that they're hiring, spending hundreds of millions of dollars on these advanced AI engineers, they want to, to really connect them with those who are in a position to expedite product decisions in this expedited race. And so some of the decisions at Amazon, for example, looking to compress that ratio of managers to individual contributors, Morgan Stanley says that could lead to 14,000 cuts in management roles under Andy Jassy.
Yeah, I feel like one day it's going to flip and it's going to be the managers overseeing like 7 AI agents or AI bots, and there will be no just kind of player employees.
Well, now for nearly 40 years, spreadsheet mastery has been a rite of passage in a multitude of entry-level jobs, from investment banking to private equity to consulting, and that may be about to change thanks to AI. I welcome this, Leslie.
Yeah, because you were a spreadsheet cruncher.
For more than 40 years, computers have been classroom disruptors.
The microprocessor revolution is reaching into the classroom, and the 80s will see more and more children being introduced to computer technology at an increasing scale.
These students are logging onto a bulletin board, which is a huge data bank of information.
In the not-too-distant future, this is what most Australian classrooms will probably look like.
We're now at the next stage of that evolution, with generative artificial intelligence in some schools and a whole new world of AI programs that are changing the way students learn. It's powerful software like ChatGPT, trained on existing data to interact like a human would. You can ask it to produce images, help make music, and even write essays.
This is our next industrial revolution.
It kind of scares me a little bit, but that's partially a fault of the Terminator films.
I don't think it's a question of whether or not students are ready for the AI revolution, because they're already in it.
I've come to Westbourne Grammar on the western outskirts of Melbourne, where the revolution is well advanced. The independent school's principal has replaced himself with a chatbot on their website. Hello.
Hello, I'm here to assist with questions about Westbourne.
Well, not entirely.
Hi, Jason.
Adrian, nice to meet you in person.
Likewise.
Why would you make a deepfake of yourself?
It's about harnessing the power of artificial intelligence to connect with our community in new ways. So this avatar is on our website, and it enables anyone who visits our website to interact with me and ask questions about the school.
It also speaks in different languages.
Hey, Adrian, tell me about Westbourne Grammar School and tell me in Korean.
안녕하세요. 저는 웨스트본 그래머 학교에 대해 말씀드리겠습니다. 우리 학교는 1867년에 설립된 역사가 깊은 학교로 빅토리아주에서 가장 성공적인 사립학교 중 하나입니다.
What happens when a parent comes to you and thinks you can speak Korean?
It's actually opened up some really interesting conversations with our international community. I'm very clear that we're using AI to do this.
After ChatGPT launched in late 2022, Victoria and other states initially moved to ban it in public schools over various concerns, including cheating. But Westbourne Grammar decided to embrace it.
I don't think banning's ever the solution. You know, I think we need to be educating our young people about the safe, effective and ethical uses and making sure that they understand when it's okay to augment their own intelligence and their learning through the effective uses of the tools at their disposal.
The school also uses other programs that give feedback on public speaking through an AI audience.
The first hard lesson I'd ever learned came with my first failure.
Create video games with just a few commands.
This is kind of like a space shooter game, except it has more of a environment twist on it. You have to just get rid of all of the plastic bags and straws.
And conjure up works of AI art.
I'm generating a shark wearing a pink tutu and riding a surfboard. Now I can just print it straight from the platform.
And the task was to create something that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we should be approaching it cautiously, but also if schools aren't the ones that are engaging our young people in conversations about artificial intelligence, if schools aren't the ones teaching students about the safe, effective and ethical uses of this technology, then who is?
But as some schools dive into AI, there are profound questions about how it's affecting how we think. Jake Renzella is a senior lecturer in computer science at UNSW and helps students around Australia understand the ethics of AI.
So the real concern here is that are we outsourcing the learning when we ask students to do work with these tools? The way the brain actually works when we're using these tools is changing. The ability for a student to recall what went into an essay when they wrote the essay themselves is heavily reduced in some early studies when the students used ChatGPT-like tools to write certain essays, for example. We can bundle this all up in a term called over-reliance. Are students relying too much on these technologies? That's the real concern here.
It will only replace thinking or make people lazy if we let it. Now, we're not evangelists, Jason, because we are pro-human. We understand that we are a complex human-centred organisation. We're a school.
Around Australia, some states are trialling their own AI programs. In New South Wales, 50 public schools are using what's known as EduChat.
Okay, so we're going to do a critical polish, and this is something that
It was designed by the Education Department, and unlike other AI programs, its content has been restricted to the state syllabus.
So our aim is to make our writing stronger.
At Plumpton High in Western Sydney, these Year 11s are using EduChat to help draft an essay on Shakespeare's Othello. They're learning how to prompt the AI with their own questions. Young Ashton has already handwritten his thoughts and has now asked the AI how he can make his writing even better.
EduChat's telling me to analyze.
Hey guys, I apologize. Yeah, let me see. Hold on, let me get it back up. Who is this? Yeah, thanks a lot, right? Yeah, it's cool. So here's the deal, right? If you are a knowledge worker, that means that how you pay your bills, at least your major bills, how you earn your living, how you go out and eat, how you buy coffee at a coffee shop, you do it as a result of earning money from what you know. okay? If that's you, you have to find or identify some utility with AI, or you're gonna have to upskill or level up some type of way, because depending on what you do, these agentic AIs, these agents, these scripts, these tools, they're gonna be able to perform those low-level repetitive tasks that don't involve face-to-face human being or human interaction. It's just what it is. There's some stuff I do in Salesforce. There's some stuff I do in Microsoft Fabric. There's some stuff I do with Power BI. I could create an agent to do that like tonight. Not all of it, not the creative part, not the intuitive, not the thinking, but in terms of the workflows or the flow itself, I could create agentic AIs to do that. It's just the reality of it. I'm not saying it for me. I'm in a slightly different position because I'm empowered by the AI tools and the resources and the advent of it. That's not my, but I'm not a good example. I'm saying for many people who are comfortable and complacent, and you are a knowledge worker, you want to pay attention to what's going on because you do have some time. I'm thinking like people are good for the next 3 years. But after the next 3 years, all of these first level customer service, first level tech support, redundant, do this, do that, and you bragging about I could work at a coffee shop or out on the beach or on a boat, a lot of that's going away. But let's get back to this. The purpose of education. You know, when we look at that, 10 years from now, are you going to be sending your kids? The whole idea of going to college will be redefined 10 years from now. That whole idea of it. Because what are you going to be doing? What are people going to be going there for? It has to be restructured. It has to be redefined. I mean, the idea of it in and of itself. You know, I say to people all the time, there's a difference between school and
Now
education.
we move on to the first of our panel discussions.
There's a difference.
And
there's a big difference
we're going to have a
between
day where
school and education. School literally is where you go. It's like church. It's where you go. Church isn't the faith itself, even though it's kind of used all over the place. School is the place you go to get what? An education. Education is different than school. You don't need to go to school to get an education. When one of my daughters graduated from high school, I asked her, are you going in the tech field? And she says, I'm not sure. I said, okay, if you're going in the tech field, don't go straight to college if you're going in the tech field. Hang out for me for 2 years and then go to college and get that degree, and you'll already be making $50,000 a year. Because technology doesn't work that way. You don't need this whole process of going to college to become, at that time, a database engineer or graphic arts when they're not going to hire you for learning everything they're going to teach you there. You get hired for the primary tasks, the primary duties, the primary feature sets of being a DB admin, of being a graphic artist. It's not those 2,500 features they're going to make you read a book about in school. It's just not. But anyway, let's get into the purpose of education in and of itself.
We're going to think about many different aspects of learning and education and focus very heavily on science and technology. But we thought we ought to begin in the broadest possible sense by asking, what is education for? What is the purpose of education? And to investigate that, I'm delighted to welcome 4 panelists. An-Young Choi, who's a chemistry teacher from the Korean Science Academy. Lynn Goodwin, who's Professor of Education at Boston College. Kostya Novoselov, 2010 Nobel Laureate in Physics. And Jul Razak, who's the rector of the International Islamic University in Malaysia. So, please, welcome them. You're here. There's a seating... I think we do... Oh, that you've disrupted the seating plan. They had you alphabetical. I think it probably matters for the microphones. Lynn, you should be here, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Jewel, and Kostya there. I think for some reason, technically it works. During this session, I'm also going to ask the audience to participate with some questions and comments. So please be ready to raise your hand when I point. Before this meeting, we asked the audience if they would send us some videos of what they think the purpose of education is. And it's pretty scary to hold your phone and record a video. And so I'm incredibly grateful to those brave souls who gave it a go. And we'd like to play just a very short video showing some of their responses.
I think education is one of our most basic human instincts. Just like eating and sleeping, humans naturally have a thirst of.
Education is not just about growing intellectually, but also to help us become a better person.
The discovery of one's talent and weaknesses, and how to overcome those specific challenges.
I personally think that education is meant for the advancement of our society.
Education is a means to address inequality. That's because resources are limited, so you have to use them smartly. So scientists study better ways and educate people with knowledge.
Thank you very much indeed. It's interesting that those comments are very broad brush as well, that people seem to have risen above the task of passing exams and thinking about education in a much broader way. Lynn, let's start with you. What do you think the purpose of education is, and how would you follow on from Liz Cho's talk?
So I'm really happy, actually, to follow from Liz Cho's really inspiring and excellent talk, because her focus is on a purpose in education that I think we have strayed far from, with our attention being diverted to human capital and to economies, and how to make sure that children develop the skills that they need in order to fuel, to drive economics. Education is supposed to be the great equalizer, and I'm here to in some ways agree with Liz Cho to say that in many ways education has become the great de-equalizer or dis-equalizer, that is, become a tool for separating and marginalizing and sorting and ranking children into those who deserve a good education and those who don't.
Now, who agrees with that, with what she said? Yeah, the de-equalizer, the divider. See, that's the thing, right? People have different perspectives on what the purpose of education is. A lot of times it depends on the economy that you're in, the politics involved, maybe the structure of that government. A lot of people in the United States may look at it a particular way because we're looking at it from the purview of the United States. You might be looking at it from your seat in race and class and economics, your socioeconomic status, different things like that, whatever the consideration might be. A lot of people look at it differently in other places, the purpose of education. As she said, education purportedly is supposed to be the great equalizer. You know, sort of like if you look at the internet, you know, you look at the internet, and even now you look at AI, right? There's supposed to be this democratization of information or the availability of it, because no matter where you are in the world or who you are or how much money you got in your bank account or whatever the color of the skin you are, how tall you are, how much you weigh, whatever your diet is, we can pretty much do the same searches contextually and kind of get exposed to the same information. So in terms of some parity there, some level playing field, and some access, that's ideally what it is. She's making the point that education supposed to be the great equalizer. But come to find out, it's the great divider. Who deserves it? Who should be afforded it? How do we compartmentalize and marginalize and separate? Now she's saying that. So you ain't gotta worry about me Her credentials is saying that. Her scholarship, her portfolio, how she looks on paper is saying that. This is her speaking at the Nobel Prize Dialogue in Seoul in 2023. So if there's a lie being told, I'm just paraphrasing. She must be telling it. But let's finish listening to what she has to say. She's the authority, right? Y'all would agree.
So if I think about Liz Cho's talk, and if I look at these short videos, what has the focus been? On being a good human being, on being able to develop your capacities, on learning, not necessarily achieving.
Thank you very much indeed. Jewel, would you like to follow on from that?
Well, thank you very much. This is a very exciting time to talk about education. But I thought education is about you, just like what the speakers have been saying. It's about you and how do you know yourself. You go back to the days of the Greeks, education is always framed as know thyself. Unless you know who you are, in other words, unless you educate yourself in that sense, you will not be able to function in the society at large. So to me, education is about how to repurpose education. We've got talks like, what is the heart of education? Some people say education, heart of education is education of the heart. In fact, Plato was said that if you educate without the heart, then it doesn't mean education at all. So I think we need to go back to the very basics of first being human being. So all the things that have been talked about, being kind, being caring, and all the spiritual things that we talked about are the fundamentals of education. We need to start from that. I would rather believe that I'm a spiritual native rather than a digital native. I know who I am, and then I can then deal with whatever else that I need to deal with from my point of view. And that is what connects us, all of us. We are all human beings. Korea.
No, I'm on the south side of Chicago at a Starbucks. That's why I keep muting my mic when I go off, because it's like 40 people in here, as it should be, and they playing music, and human beings are being human beings, as they should be. I mean, I love it, right? But that's why I mute out. I am using a DJI wireless mic too, and it's pretty cool. I got the windscreen or the mini dead cap on it, and it does well. I'm not that impressed with actually the audio from these DJI wireless mics too, but they serve the purpose. They do. Even in this noisy, look, this is how it sounds. Let me take me off here and switch open air to let you hear how it sounds in here. Hang on, let me do that real quick. And then you have some contrast between this DJI mic 2 and what you would typically hear. Let me switch it off. Here it goes. Hang on. Okay, so now what you're hearing is not this anymore. Now you're just hearing open air mic. You're hearing everything. Orders being placed. Now imagine me doing that and playing this.
In Malaysian, wherever we come from, we are all humans, and that is the glue that connects us. And if you lose that glue, then you begin to think of yourself in segmentation way, and this is where the problem of education is all about. And I'm very glad to see that everybody is saying, let's not just talk about STEM, let's talk about STEAM, for example. Where's arts, where's management, where's ethics? We cannot deal with science without all these things. So bring this back together, Adam, is what I think education is all about. It's not new, but we need to go back and repurpose education for what it is meant to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, these are pretty good mics, though. I when I go bike riding, I connected to my Insta360 cam. These work well. These do well. They do. And it comes with a small receiver. You can connect to your phones, your laptops. It's a C-type connector. It's a nice product. It's just not a high quality sound, but it does great in terms of pushing back some of the ambient sound of whatever environment you have, especially with the mini dead cat on here. So let me shut up and stop selling this microphone and get back to AI in the future education.
Wow, welcome everybody to the final day of South by Southwest EDU. It's been a fantastic week. Everybody been enjoying themselves, feeling inspired? I'm super delighted to be moderating this conversation with the fabulous Sinead Boval on AI and the future of education. Just by way of a bit of background, Sinead and I have known each other since the Clubhouse days. Was anybody on Clubhouse? You know, that audio app that was highly popular, one of the bright spots of COVID. And we had the chance to meet very much virtually, I guess, and get deep into conversations around AI, the future of AI in society, AI avatars, and really a sort of a precursor to the conversation that we're having today. So it's my absolute honor to be in conversation with Sinead about this topic today. So a little bit about Sinead. Actually, who follows Sinead on social media? Yeah, a lot of hands. She's got a massive fan base. It was hard to get to this stage, actually, with people kind of coming up to her and saying how much they admire her work. Well, just in terms of her professional perspective, Sinead is a strategic foresight advisor and the founder of WAY, which is an organization dedicated to preparing businesses and the next generation of leaders for a future shaped by advanced technology. She advises C-suite executives and senior leadership across governments and global corporations on emerging and exponential technologies. And she's an 11-time United Nations speaker, and she has delivered formal addresses to presidents, royal families, and Fortune 500 leaders on topics from synthetic biology to artificial intelligence. And today she has advised, very relevant to this conversation, 16,000 educators, government officials, and policymakers on redesigning education for the age.
These titles are crazy, man. I mean, you know, people have so many credentials and they've done so much and they such authorities on so much. You have to listen to somebody introduce somebody with those credentials for like 5 to 7 minutes. It's crazy, right? Like, why don't you just say, here go one of the top 10 smartest persons on the planet, and let's just get to it. But I'll fast forward. Hang on.
I think, education is the bedrock for a healthy democracy and for a functioning society.
I like that. That's a good premise or thesis statement. Education is the bedrock for a healthy society and a bright future and all the rest of the stuff. That's great. Just paraphrasing.
And it's not just essential for things like economic mobility and economic security, but fairness as well, and for well-being. I believe there's no such thing as a state that over-invests in children's future. An investment in children is an investment in national interest, right? So you want to foster an informed and adaptive citizenry that can not just safeguard the future, but thrive in it, especially a future that's going to be as complex as the one children in school today are entering into, which will be shaped by quantum computing, genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, commuting back and forth to space. This is an incredibly complex world they'll be entering into. So the more that they can understand it, the more we can support them in that journey, the better equipped they are. And that's an investment in a country's economic security, in our collective health and well-being, and our overall security and national security interests.
Goodness, so couldn't be a more pressing topic. And before we dive into some of the kind of finer points, where would you say, taking a step back, like where are we at this moment with AI?
Ooh, so if I were to say where we are, I mean, it's very, very early. Maybe it's 1992, the internet has dropped, companies are experimenting. We know it's maybe gonna be a big deal, but there's still a lot of doubt. Some people are also kind of playing around on it. But we have yet to fully comprehend the way it is going to fundamentally transform our world. The Googles, the Apples, the Amazons of the future, they have yet to be invented, but they're coming. And artificial intelligence, it's also a general purpose technology, so similar to something like electricity. Think of how pervasive electricity is. We don't even think about it at all. It's so foundational that it's moved into the background. So we will soon be streaming artificial intelligence the way we stream electricity. That is going to be a fundamentally different society to live in. And these general purpose technologies, they take time to get so entrenched in society. But you know when it's reached that point, because when people can't access general purpose technologies, whether that's at a country level, certain neighborhoods, we deem that wildly unethical. Who doesn't get fair access to the internet? Who doesn't get access to electricity? That is the path artificial intelligence is on.
So if artificial intelligence is going to be this general purpose.
So in essence, we're just talking about early stages, right? But here's the thing. Here's something that I find like very interesting. Why follow the practice of not getting into it until it's fully adopted? I think it's just a bad practice. The advantage we have now because of information, because of the internet, because of technology, because of these smartphones and everything else, you can find some utility, some use case, and level up and upskill and improve your situation with early adoption. That's why I try to tell the people awareness, literacy, and adoption. Don't wait until somebody taps you on your shoulder and say you have to use it when you have a situation or opportunity to look under the hood right now. Right now, you're in a very objective position. Why? Because nobody's forcing you to do it in that sense. But once you're compelled to use it and there are no options, you won't be exploring it. You won't even be learning from it. You'll be force fed. That's a different seating. That's a different situation. And ideally, as a human being, psychologically, emotionally, academically, you're going to respond differently to that. But, she's the authority, or one of them. Let's finish listening to what she has to say.
Technology and fade into the background. What does AI in education look like now? Like, how should educators be considering AI in education, given that it will be in the background, but today we're at this very early phase?
Yeah, so I think that there are kind of three pillars that are related but distinct in terms of how we should be thinking about AI in education. The first pillar is safe adoption for kids and for learners. So this means equipping kids with the tools to navigate artificial intelligence because they're going to be on these tools at home regardless. They have supercomputers in their pockets, supercomputers on their iPads. So giving kids the skills to utilize these tools safely. So that's conversations like AI isn't your friend, right? Your chatbot isn't something that you tell secrets to. This is what we do or don't share with artificial intelligence. And this is also how you ask it good questions and validate its answers. So that's pillar one. Pillar two is, how do we more urgently adjust what we are teaching in school, or just the formula for what happens in the classroom versus what happens at home, knowing that kids are going to be leaning into these technologies at home to do homework and to complete assignments. The third pillar, and this is where I think we are rushing into, but this is actually the long-term game, is how do we fundamentally redesign the entire system of education for the age of artificial intelligence. But what seems to be happening in this moment is we are kind of merging all of those pillars in a sense of urgency. And this leads us to deploy AI in schools for the sake of feeling like we need to meet the moment by bringing AI into the classroom. And there are a lot of technologies that aren't ready. So I think we focus on pillar one, giving kids the tools to use these tools safely if they're going to be using them on their phones. We slightly adjust what we're teaching to account for cheating in homework, but it's much more at the departments of education, the ministries of education level to take this longer term lens and fundamentally redesign AI or school for the age of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, so my comments on that is I do agree. And there are some steps being taken now. If you think about it, I think about a month ago, the AFL, the American Federation for Teachers Union, they're doing a partnership with Microsoft, OpenAI, and Anthropic. Like, keep this in mind. Anthropic, the CEO, co-founder, is Dario Amodei. He has Claude, right? That's Claude. That's him. And then if you think about Microsoft, they have Copilot. So when you're using your Microsoft applications or suite, whether it be Outlook or Access or PowerPoint or Excel or whatever, and you keep seeing that Copilot. If you work in the corporate environment or you have at least a E3 or some level of license in your own business or for some organization, have your tech support make sure it's enabled. The reason why you want that enabled, your co-pilot is your power user. The co-pilot is that person that was good at Excel, that good at PowerPoint, good at so and so that you hope or you was checking to see if it worked that day. That's your assistant. That thing will allow you to what? Augment your current skills. So that partnership with Anthropic, with Microsoft, and ChatGPT's OpenAI, they're building a 23 or $25 million facility in New York, and they are going to train over 400,000 teachers in the next 5 years. That's just what's going to happen. So let's take a look.
Great. So I think we've heard this week a number of different ways that educators are experimenting with AI, different pilots, different ways of going about it. Like, is now the time to be, so it sounds like we should be teaching it and educating about it. Is now the time to be experimenting with it in deeper ways?
Yeah. So, teaching it, it's more so AI is a hard skill. So that should be happening. Experimenting with it, yes, we need to be running these pilots. We need to be gathering the data as to what's working and what's not, but it has to be in very, very intentional ways, and not just assuming that we can just throw in an AI tutor somewhere arbitrarily and that's going to be sufficient. And making sure that we're not running social experiments that jeopardize learning outcomes for the sake of just feeling like we need to quickly meet the moment. So yes, I think that these experiments, they're vital, they should be happening, but they need to be very, very intentional and very, very controlled.
I know that you're working with Fortune 50 companies in this space and advising them on how to navigate AI and education. What are some of the data points and the advice that you've been giving them?
Yeah, so it's been really, really interesting to look at some of the data that's coming through. And of course, we're still very, very early in the age of using artificial intelligence in education. But there's one clear trend that stands out. So I'm going to walk us through a study that I find particularly helpful. And this was done by the University of Wharton, the University of, I believe, Pennsylvania, and Budapest British International School. And it implemented artificial intelligence in math classes. So there were a few math classes in the high school, and they broke the class up into 3 groups. The control group, which is just your traditional doing homework problems with your textbook. The GPT base group, and this is the students that got uninhibited access to artificial intelligence. And then the GPT tutor group. So these are students that got access to an AI that has been designed to just guide them through problems, give them hints, but not the answers. All students got the base lesson for math together, and then they broke out into their respective groups and their respective tiers of AI access or not. So the study showed that when it came to the practice problems, the children that got uninhibited access to AI did 48% better on the practice problems than the control group. The students that got access to the GPT tutor did 127% better than the control group. But when it came back time to actually test students with...
This woman is dope. I have to say it. I had to pause that. This woman with all her credentials, even though I was whining about how long it took for the host to introduce her because she has so many credentials, this woman seems grounded and she seems connected, and one ear in the school system and one ear in the street or the home. This is I have to agree. I like her.
So there were a few math classes in the high school, and they broke the class up into 3 groups. The control group, which is just your traditional doing homework problems with your textbook. The GPT base group, and this is the students that got uninhibited access to artificial intelligence. And then the GPT tutor group. So these are students that got access to an AI that has been designed to just guide them through problems, give them hints, but not the answers. All students got the base lesson for math together, and then they broke out into their respective groups and their respective tiers of AI access or not. So the study showed that when it came to the practice problems, The children that got uninhibited access to AI did 48% better on the practice problems than the control group. The students that got access to the GPT tutor did 127% better than the control group. But when it came back time to actually test students without access to AI and do the final post-unit test, the kids that got the uninhibited access performed 17% worse, so AI harmed the learning outcome. And the children that got access to the AI tutor performed at the same level as the children that didn't get access to any artificial intelligence. And so the conclusion of the study was that generative AI harms learning outcomes. But then there was a second study that happened at Harvard. And of course, we have to control for the fact that self-directed learning is a little bit different at a university level. And clearly, if you're getting into Harvard, there's also some kind of higher order thinking that you're able to do. But that aside, it was a physics class. And they broke the physics class into two groups. The control group, which is the students that went to the traditional lecture with the professor. Then they broke out into peer groups and worked with one another and their peers and had instructor-led guidance on solving problems. The second group had no in-class lessons at all. The entire process was done with AI, but they specifically designed the AI to be self-paced, going with the student's needs, to provide immediate feedback, whether the student was on the right direction or off the right direction while they're doing the problems, to provide motivation and to really take all learning best practices and implement it into that system and continue to adapt how it tested the child based on how they were evolving and doing the problems. When they did the general test after those two experiments, the kids that went the pathway of artificial intelligence performed twice as well as the peers that didn't get access to AI, and they were more motivated and more engaged. And so what we can learn from just those two kind of isolated studies is that you have to adapt the entire ecosystem, right? It's akin to inventing electricity, but only swapping out where the steam engine was and putting light switch there, not building out the entire assembly line and rethinking about how we design the system. That's step one. Step two, immediate feedback is absolutely vital in AI learning outcomes. Gone are the days, if we're going to incorporate artificial intelligence, where we wait for the unit test or midterms or the end of year exam to see where students are. Artificial intelligence needs to be able to extract the data in real time. This is how somebody is adapting, or this is how they're falling behind. And AI needs to provide that feedback, or else we lose visibility into how well things are happening. Self-paced learning is also vital. So if you go back to the high school, everybody had an hour and a half to learn the math problem. So whether you were working with your textbook or working with AI, that hurt people that were doing the AI method, and it helped people doing the traditional method. So kids need to learn at their own pace, and the system needs to be able to adapt in real time. So those are just a few of the key takeaways when we think about AI in education. But that's why this is a longer-term redesign, and that redesign should not fall on teachers. And that's one thing that I think we need to really make clear, that this moment shouldn't fall on teachers. They already have way too much on their plate. This is something for government, department heads, and those designing curricula more broadly. And I think we're getting that wrong.
Right, yes. I had the opportunity to sit on a few panels yesterday, and there was definitely, a very understandably irate educator who was like,
I do agree. For the most part, I do agree with what she said. It just makes sense. All right, guys, I'm going to get ready to bounce. I want to say thank you for stopping through. If you like this content, you want to see more, go ahead and sub to the channel. Leave your comments. Do what you do. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. For a lot of people, it's a long weekend. You don't have to get back to it until Tuesday. I think I'm going to go down to the park and see if any of the chess players down there and get some chess in for a second. Anyway, peace out. It's your boy, Talk Williams, host and creator of what? Hip Hop